Hi everyone, I hope you're having a safe and healthy summer. My name is Dr. Drake. I'm an assistant professor in the Liberal Studies Department at CSU Stanislaus. I'm here to welcome you to our department. We are excited to have you as part of our Liberal Studies family and look forward to seeing you work through your course requirements and very soon walk away with your degree, your bachelor's in Liberal Studies. So I'm providing this short video to help you with your preparation for new student orientation, or NSO, for our Liberal Studies transfer students. And so what I'm going to do is kind of walk you through the flow chart that has been provided by our department to help you prepare your map. All right, so we're going to gather our materials. On the CSU STAN Liberal Studies Advising page, you will find all of these documents. They're also linked in the flow chart that you've been provided. So the first document you definitely need to have, and I would suggest having several of these. This is your major advising plan or map. This is going to be really crucial for you in terms of your movement through the course requirements for the degree. And what this does is essentially maps everything out in terms of the subject matter requirements, the general education requirements, and then of course your LIBS major and concentration requirements. So we ask that whenever you come to an advising session that you always have an updated version of this, your map. And think of this kind of like a resume. So you want to be updating this at least every semester as you complete classes and writing them in here on your map. The next document that is important, especially for our transfer students, is this subject matter articulation guide. And as you can see, it basically breaks down the subject matter courses that we have required for our major, and then it shows you what the course equivalent is at Stan State to the community college that perhaps you came from. So your first step, as you can see, is going to be to get your unofficial transcript or transfer credit report. Either you would have your unofficial from your community college, or the instructions in our flowchart talk about how you can go in and essentially print off your transfer credit report from the Stan State system. And so I, for the purpose of this video, have printed off a transfer document of a student, and so I'm going to be showing you how you can do the same thing for yourself, work through the course articulation guide, and then put it onto meaning the classes that you have completed, onto your finished map. So our first step is going to be looking at our transfer credit report. One more important document that is highly recommended that you print off and utilize during this process is the LIBS Subject Matter Advising Guide, as you can see here. And so these are the actual courses at CSU Stanislaus that count, and by count I mean fit in these spots of your subject matter on your map. And so it's just a little bit more clear, and you'll also see here that the great part about this is if you move your finger across to these parentheses, it also shows you where subject matter applies in GE. So we're going to get to that in a moment, but the first thing I'm going to do is walk you through highlighting on our subject matter course articulation based on your transfer credit report. Okay, so I've printed off, as I said, this transfer credit report. This student particularly transferred in from Merced College, as you can see there on the left-hand side. And as step one of the flow chart highlighted, this is where you're going to look particularly when it comes to GE. But for now, we're going to work on our subject matter. And so what I'm going to do is go through and find classes that apply to the subject matter area. So I'm going to go ahead and skip down here to Math 20A. And so what you can see here is if you look across, it's going to tell you what CSU STAN course your community college class applies toward. And then it also will tell you about your GE. But first and foremost, we're going to go ahead then and go over to our subject matter articulation guide. And under math, this student has taken as you can see, at Merced, Math 20A, okay, and that counts for Math 1030. And so what you'll want to do is just, again, to go through the entire column and mark which classes you have taken. So again, you can see here the student took Liberal Studies LIBS 10, or Introduction to Education at Merced, which, if I go across and highlight it, that is LIBS 1000 here at Stan State. And so again, I will go down to the bottom of the course articulation guide, and as you can see, there it is. There's LIBS 1000, which is the beginning field experience, and there it is. So what you need to do is go down your transfer credit report and mark any of these areas that apply specifically to the GE area. And so let me make sure you can see what we're doing here. Let's look next to, how about our history area? And so you can see here the student took 3 history classes total. Do want to point out that classes that you get lower than a C will not count. So that's, like you may have seen, I did not go and utilize this one. The poli-sci course that the student didn't pass. So these classes are good to go. And so again, we're going to say History 4A, looking over here, and what does that count for? History 1010. So again, on to my subject matter guide. And then History 4A, so here is where the student took it. Again, let's take a look. Where is History 29, History of California? The student took that. And look at this, lining up very nicely. History 2 at Merced, and so the student took that as well. Finally, let's see here, 17A, United States History. Also, as you can see right here. So that one course, definitely that student would be needing to look to take poli-sci now that they've transferred into Stan State, being that they didn't necessarily pass it. And so finally, you can look again. We've marked all of the history and social science classes that the student took. Here you can see English 1A. We know that's part of our subject matter, and it counts for English 1000. And so again, you can see here English 1000 or English 1A. Okay, so once you have gone through your subject matter course articulation and highlighted all the classes that you took at your junior college that count towards your subject matter at Stan State, your next step is going to be to fill those classes in here on the subject matter portion of your map. Now note, I am using pen today so that you can see what I'm writing because of my document camera, but we really encourage this to be done in pencil because that way you can erase it, make adjustments, etc. So here we go. It's really quite simple from here. We're going to go area by area. So you can see here in the language arts area, the student took COM 1. And so under oral communication, we're going to go ahead and write COMM1. Yes, we know that that's the equivalent of COM 2000 at Stan, but because you're a transfer student, it's best to write the course that you took at your JC. Another thing that I like to make a point to do when I'm filling out the map, especially in this area, is I like to make note of when the class was taken, just so you as a student can keep track. So this student took this class in fall of 17. And of course, then you can go ahead and put your grade. And so we're just going to go down here through these. English 1A, right here for the composition class. And if I have that the student took this in spring of 17 and the grade, well done, here we go, we've got a B. And then finally, this student took English 13 at Merced College, which is that critical thinking course. So I'm going to again write it in here, English 13, and the student received a B. And again, this was done in the fall of 2017. So now we're just going to go down the list, and I'm going to, off camera, fill the rest of this map out in its subject matter area. Alrighty, and we are back. So I've now taken all of the courses that I found on the Student's Transfer Credit Report and highlighted here. I have taken those and transferred them on to the subject matter area of the student's map. And so I think essentially one thing that I would like to point out is this bio class. You're going to see here at Stan State it's usually offered as the class with a lab, and the Bio 1 at Merced is a 4-unit class that actually has the lab integrated into it. So pay attention to that. If your bio class that you took at your junior college is 4 units and not 3, then it maybe it already had that lab built in and integrated into the course. But you can see now that the student has made really great progress in terms of their subject matter at the junior college level, and now it is time for us to go on to step 3 of your flowchart. So now that we have subject matter filled out, we're going to look again to this bottom left-hand side of your map where you should be putting down your general education classes that you've fulfilled. So looking back to your course articulation guide, I want to point out here, let's just look specifically at the language arts area. So the classes that you have placed up here in your subject matter area, when you look at them here on your course articulation guide, if you move over here, you're going to see these little alphanumeric codes for each of these areas. And so that for you is actually your indication of what GE area this class applies to. And so what I'm going to then do is I'm going to look here, and let's see if I can get both of these so you can see what I'm up to. Perfect. And so this COM class that the student took here in fall 17 actually applies towards the A1 GE area. And so down here in the GE section, the student will then write the name of the class again, COM 1. You see here how it's asking for the term, so you can write it either over here, or there's a lot more space over here, so I tend to put it over to the left. So fall 17, and again that student received a C in that class. And so basically you're going to go down your course articulation guide and find those alphanumeric codes and then place them where the class applies within this GE area. And so I would complete my A area. Let's see how quickly I can go ahead and throw these in here. English 1A. So a lot of this is kind of nice because it's just copying what you've written down up above. And then for your critical thinking A3 area, you can see here. And so I'm going to do the same. Fall 17, the class was English 13, and the student received the B. And so we're just going to move down. I'm going to jump past history and social science now for a moment to highlight what I mentioned earlier over here with regard to science in the subject matter area. And so you can see here Bio 1, it has this star next to it on the course articulation guide, and that's the indication that it in fact met the lab requirement. And so you can see it's telling us that Bio 1 fulfills the B2 area, and so on the map I'm going to look here to B2. Here it is right here, and so I will again write Bio 1, and the semester it was completed. And then, like I mentioned before, because this was a 4-unit class, and if you're not sure whether or not it was a 4-unit class and whether or not it had that lab attached to it, you can look back at your transfer credit report and you can see here Bio 1, is 4 units. Another thing, there are so many places where you can look on these documents to give you hints, and so I just wanted to point that out, what the flowchart said in step 1, that when you look all the way to the left on that transfer credit report, it actually indicates the GE area that the class applies to. And so classes that didn't necessarily count for subject matter but are on here, I'm going to particularly point out, as I was kind of going just now, about classes that aren't actually subject matter but do count towards GE. So here you can see this student took the Sociology Introduction course at Merced in fall of 16. And again, when we go all the way over to the edge here, it shows up as a DE area, GE area D2. The A doesn't really matter right now because you're a B map, so don't worry about that. But let's go and find D2. So I've pretty much completed this map, and I just wanted to point that out. So those other classes that you might find that weren't subject matter but do count for GE, you're going to want to make sure that you put those in. And you will notice in the GE sections, particularly here in the C and the D, they both require an additional lower division course. So an additional C2 and an additional D2. So while I was able to count History 4A under this D2 area, and I will just throw this over here to show you as a reminder where I found that. So D2 there, because I checked my transfer credit report and I did also find that sociology course, that is actually what I noted here for the student's additional lower division D, so a second class in the D2 area. Another one that if you have taken your human development or child development class at the junior college level, I did want to point that out as well. And so that is one that particularly can be counted towards the E area in the GE section. And at 3 units, that will actually fulfill all the E area that you require. So as you can see, I pretty much filled this in, and this is the great thing about being a transfer student. You know, you've done a lot of work in your GE area, and you'll see this student really all they have left to do is once they have more than 60 units, they would be considered upper division status, and that means you can take 3,000 and 4,000 level classes at CSU Stan. And so that is when you will start to enroll and look for classes that fulfill this UDC, UDD, and UDB areas. You know, we'll talk more about that, and I really think, you know, from here, you definitely need to go and see an advisor, and thank goodness we're having NSO. Take time to chat with your advisor and show your advisor your map. Step 4 of the flowchart says identify courses that fulfill other requirements, and so you'll note it is specifically pointing out LIBS 1000, 2000, Math 1040, and Human Development. I kind of did everything all at once when I was looking through the course articulation page, of course, because, you know, we have those human development and LIBS co-requisites down here at the bottom. But just, you know, double check and make sure that there isn't any other class that you took at the JC or at the community college level that would fulfill any other area on this map. But if you stick to doing your subject matter and then transferring everything that fulfills a GE area, as you can see, you're going to be pretty set to go and have a really great idea of what you need to take to fulfill the remaining requirements for your coursework. And so as a final note, as I wrap this up, like I said, you're going to be looking to fill in the holes that you don't yet have filled in, as well as working on your LIBS major and your concentration area, which will go down here. And I just would like to note, it says it here on the map, but senior seminar, you'll see that should be taken in your last semester of study just before you graduate, and you can see it, the prerequisite, meaning you have to take before you take this class, is LIBS 3200. Again, must complete before taking 4960 up here. And I just want to point that out because that means that they cannot be taken concurrently. 3200 must be taken prior to 4960. And again, should be taken in your final semester. And so we're always going to prioritize the enrollment in our senior seminar courses for graduating seniors. And so if you are a late junior or an early senior and you're trying to get it in because it fits into your schedule, FYI, your senior seminar professor might ask you to defer your enrollment to your final semester, especially if there are graduating seniors that need that spot. All right, so that's it. Hopefully you were able to follow this video and fill in your map. We in the Liberal Studies Department look forward to meeting you during your NSO, and especially look forward to having you in our LIBS classes. So thank you again, and welcome to Stan State.